Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, Grant Reddick. Choosing a bird feeder can be a daunting task. There's so many different designs, colors, and styles that it can be impossible to pick which one you should decide on. But if you can only choose one feeder for your backyard, we're going to discuss why you should choose a hopper style feeder with suet cages on the side, and why it can maximize the amount of species that you can attract to your yard. Today's video is sponsored by KingsYard, and they provided me with this hopper style feeder that we're going to review later in the video. But first, let's discuss why I personally requested this style of feeder, a hopper style feeder with suet cages on the side, and why it can be the best feeder that you can add to your yard. Hopper style bird feeders are one of the most common feeders that you come across. They're typically fashioned from a soft wood such as cedar or pine, and they're usually meant to replicate or look like a house or a barn. Hopper style feeders allow for several different kinds of food. This is due to the large opening in the top, as well as the gravity feed contraption at the bottom. This means that you can try several different kinds of food, such as black oil sunflower seeds, striped sunflower seeds, corn, white millet, safflower, mealworms. Personally, I always recommend black oil sunflower seeds. They're high in fat and protein, and they attract the most variety of birds that like to eat seed. But having the option to choose different foods is always a huge benefit, and it even makes it easy to switch things up and try different things. Hopper style feeders also have an advantage over smaller feeders such as tube feeders, and that is because their bigger size allows for bigger birds such as northern cardinals or blue jays. They can still accommodate the smaller birds like finches, nuthatches, and chickadees. Another advantage that hopper style feeders have over other feeders is that they typically have a roof that covers the seed. And while if you have a lot of wind and a lot of rain, it's not going to do a lot of good, but at least if you have a small drizzle or just a little mist, it's still going to keep the seed covered. This KingsYard hopper style feeder is a little bit more compact than most hopper style feeders. And this can be a huge advantage if you want to discourage larger birds such as grackles or starlings. The KingsYard roof is also made of clear plastic, and this is going to be much easier to clean than like the slanted roofs on a typical hopper style feeder made out of wood. One of the biggest benefits or features that I love about the KingsYard hopper style feeder is the cable that you hang the feeder from the top. The cable's embedded directly into the feeder, and there's plastic grommets in the top where it goes through the roof. I've had several hopper style feeders that I've had to retire simply because the cables came out from the staples. Addition of suet cages. Feeding birdseed in your yard is an excellent way to attract birds to your yard. However, this only accounts to the birds that are going to eat seed. And this is where the addition of the suet cages come into play. Suet is rendered animal fat, and it's typically sold commercially in small cakes. Usually these have ingredients like birdseed, cornmeal, mealworms, fruit, and several other ingredients. Suet will typically attract birds that don't normally eat birdseed, such as bluebirds, catbirds, robins, mockingbirds, and other insect-eating birds. This means that you can potentially triple the amount of species that you attract to your feeder. One of the biggest advantages that this KingsYard hopper style feeder has over other style of feeders is the suet cages itself. Most hopper style feeders have just a small wire wrap that they use as the suet cage. And the problem with this is there's nothing that covers it over the top. And so if you have a big gust of wind or an animal knocks it out, the suet cake is going to come right out. These suet wraps or little suet cages are also stapled to the feeder. And just like before with the staples, normal wear and tear is going to break down the staple, and eventually those cages come off. But the KingsYard hopper style feeder has a full suet cage and it has an overlapping wire to make sure that it locks securely. This allows you to add the suet and not have to worry if it's going to come out of the feeder. Final thoughts. If you're going to only add one bird feeder to your yard, or you have a small area with limited space, I'm going to recommend a hopper style bird feeder with suet cages on the side. This allows you to attract the biggest variety of birds, providing for both seed eaters as well as the insect and fruit eating birds that are attracted with the suet. I want to say a huge thanks to KingsYard for sponsoring this video as well as providing this feeder that we could review. I've used a lot of hopper style feeders over the years, and this one stands out to me with the overall design and the durability. If you'd like to check out this feeder or check out other KingsYard products, I'm going to link their Amazon store in the description below. If you use the code GRANTKING, all caps, you can save an additional 20% off their Amazon store. If you've enjoyed this video and you'd like to see similar content, go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the channel, and until next time, get out and get birding.